It's my favourite time of the day. The GB News pub is open, and joining me in it tonight is Conservative Member of Parliament, Michael Fabricant. Michael, welcome.
Thank you very much.
To the GB News pub.
I'm loving it, except for one thing. You won't believe this.
Go on.
They got me a really nice bottle of Chianti.
Yes.
But it had a cork in it. And you know what? The pub doesn't have a corkscrew.
I don't
so
believe
I've had to go for this inferior one. Inferior. I'm sure it'll be lovely.
Well, we had previously Christopher Biggins complained about the lack of ice. He said it was a rotten pub, but we now have an ice machine, so a corkscrew is coming.
Cheers.
Given what we've been told today in Glasgow, that the world's going to end in catastrophe, we may as well have a drink, it seems to me.
If you got to go... go sloshed is my great... Oh, it's very good, actually.
Good. What do you make of Boris today? I mean, the plagues of locust business. I mean, he's gone from being sceptical about all of this. I mean, he's now sort of... He really is an Old Testament prophet.
His dad is a big influence as well. You know, I mean, he really has been a campaigner for a long time on these issues. I don't think I'm as sceptical as you are on this one, but, you know, I think we've got to do something.
Well, I'm sceptical. Michael, I'm sceptical about what we're doing in the name of it. That's what I'm sceptical about. I'm sceptical about wind technology. I'm sceptical about the cost it puts on ordinary folk. That's where I come from.
And indeed, you know, the amount of pollution that comes in just producing an electric battery.
Yeah.
And at the moment, I'm hanging on to my onto my petrol car.
Yes.
Because the Israelis and the Americans are working on a new form of battery technology, which will be cleaner to manufacture. And you know what? It'll charge up in about 6 minutes from empty and go for 600 miles. That, to me, is a battery.
No, if we... look, I'm all for this stuff if it works, but what I'm not for is this massive transference of money from the poor to the rich, and that's what's really got me down through all of this. Plus, I'm all for... you know, environmental measures. I mentioned fish stocks just a moment ago. You know, trees, carbon sequestration, nature, all of that. Michael, it's interesting. You've been in Parliament nearly 30 years, but you're not the type that went to Oxford and did PPE, and whilst you were always active in politics, you had a life before politics.
Oh, very much so. And I wasn't active in politics, actually, really, until near the very end, when I then did get to Parliament, because my background was... I was at university, OK? I didn't do PPE, but I was at university, several universities. And while I was there, I put together a radio consortium to run a commercial radio station in Sussex. And I'd worked in the BBC before that, and pirate radio. And could be arrested if I go into too much...
Pirate radio, that must have been fun.
That was huge fun, huge fun, but very, very dangerous if you wanted to stay out of prison. But you know what? A friend of mine went to court and was taken to court by the Home Office, and there was this trial, and the magistrate, I think it was a magistrate rather than a Crown Court thing, and the magistrate said, look, what I don't understand, perhaps the Home Office can explain, what harm has the defendant actually done? He's played a few records, he's provided enjoyment for a lot of people. I'm dealing all the time with bag snatchers and all the rest of it. What harm has he done being a pirate radio, and he refers to his notes, disc jockey? And that's the truth of it. But anyways, so I think you were asking, how did I...
Well, no, what I'm saying is this. I find it quite refreshing that we have MPs like you, and you worked as a school teacher for a bit.
Only for an hour. Only for a year.
An hour.
A year. It's the wine already.
But you did do that for a bit, but then you had this career in radio, this career in media. And
setting up radio stations around the world. And in fact, sorry to interrupt you,
no, go on.
That's what brought me into politics, actually, because I was doing radio stations in 48 different countries around the world, which a lovely lady, who I'm going to quote now, Charlotte Owen from Number 10, said, well, that's about 25% of every country in the world. And I'd never thought of it like that before. And they had our radio stations, and it did two things for me. One is it made me a Eurosceptic.
Did it?
Because my company had to bribe to win contracts, not only in places when it was still legal to do that, and you had to do it, otherwise it would have simply gone to the French, the Germans, or the Americans, who were all bribing. not only in countries that you would expect to do it, third world developing countries, we had to do it to the ORTF in France, like the BBC. I mean, the only kosher European countries were Holland and Scandinavia. There was no bribery, and Belgium, actually. There was no
And
bribery.
cultures there similar to ours, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And it was a joy, and this produced the Euroscepticism. It was a joy doing business in the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and other countries which were English-speaking, had English law, were flexible, and were incorruptible.
Yeah.
And that made me think, you know, because we're going ahead of myself, but when I was interviewed for the Lichfield parliamentary constituency, I was asked, well, all right then, what one thing do you not agree with that the government believes in? And I said, well, the one thing is I think we'd be better off out of Europe.
You were saying it all those years ago.
All those years ago. So I was a Brexiteer before the word was invented.
Yeah.
But what got me to be an MP was two things. One is I had problems exporting to a particular country where the rival companies from other countries, those countries were offering all sorts of, not bribes, but maybe they were bribes in a way. They were incentives like, we'll pay for your chief engineer to come for 6 months over to our country to learn blah, blah, blah. So they were providing funding. And I went to our High Commission in Uganda, actually it was, having said I wasn't going to say. And they weren't interested in commerce in those days. And I wrote to my Member of Parliament, who was a marvellous man, the Right Honourable Sir Julian Amery.
Oh, yes.
Down in Brighton.
Yes.
And he contacted the minister, and I went to see the minister in the end. The minister was a barrister. And I said, well, what the hell are you doing being in charge of exports? When you're a barrister, you've never run anything in your life. You're an advocate, but that's it.
Well, that's my point, isn't it? That's my point.
He said to me, yeah, because people like you, Michael, who are obviously conservative, because we hadn't even discussed politics, but who are obviously conservative, never become MPs. And then...
And had you made some money doing all of that?
I had made money doing it.
And that helps
I think
as well.
It helped. Well,
Yes.
it means I'm not interested in other jobs. Some would say it's because I'm unemployable, but...
well, that's often a very good quality. But that means actually... I mean, you know, you have held positions in the party, but you're basically happy being a backbencher, aren't you?
Well, the problem I had to resign in the end because I've got a real problem with HS2, which goes through my beautiful Lichfield constituency. It doesn't stop.
Costs a fortune.
And it's not even connected to anything. So, I mean, here's me, a big Eurosceptic. But
and actually, the train service from Lichfield to London is pretty blooming good anyway.
It is.
Yeah.
You've got to come up.
You know, what is it, an hour and 15 minutes or something like that?
If you go on the Pendolino, it's about an hour and 6 minutes.
Is it? Yeah.
And if you go on the slow train,
Yeah.
it's actually 1 hour 35, and it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
And it's direct.
So that was a problem for you.
So that was a problem.
But also, the growth, the rise of UKIP was becoming a problem for you, wasn't it?
Well, this is right. And can we just get something on the record now?
Yeah.
And that is, this is the first time, David Cameron, if you're watching this, I want you to make a note of this, and the Chief Whip at the time, make a note of this. This is the first time you and I have actually met.
Properly, yeah.
Properly, yeah. We were at a dinner together once, and we were looking at each other, but it's the first time we properly met. Yeah, and what I said, I was in charge of running our by-elections at the time, which actually we used to win. And I wrote a paper called The Pact. And in order to get publicity, because I got nowhere with Number 10 over this, David Cameron, lovely guy, but he would go very pink in the face and get very angry as soon as I mentioned anything about this. So I thought, bugger it, we're going to get this now.
He didn't like me very much.
He didn't like me. He didn't like you at all. Because I will tell you, God, this sounds so creepy, but I will tell you, I said to him, Nigel Farage should be knighted, at least. Why? He has changed the face of the United Kingdom for the better. And if it hadn't been for him, you know, we'd still be in the European Union.
The wretched.
Anyway, he went very pink in the face about that as well.
Like
but
that.
the point of the whole thing was that I came up with this thing called The Pact, which got a lot of publicity at the time, and which said basically, unless we have a pact with UKIP or do something else, because I never thought we would have a pact with UKIP, another party, that wouldn't happen, or do something else, which did happen.
Like offer a referendum.
Like a referendum.
Yes.
We'll never really get a real government because a lot of Conservatives feel very depressed about...
But here's the funny thing, Michael. When you were talking about a pact, and a lot of the press were speculating around this as well, the irony of it all was, actually, in the 2015 general election, Cameron got the majority because of the number of Labour people that voted for this. And this was an issue that crossed, I think, left-right politics.
Absolutely.
Remarkably. And it's... Look, I've been moaning about fishing tonight, and with good reason. I can't stand the Northern Ireland thing. But it is done. It's over. There's no going back. So what's the next big crusade for you? You're still there in Parliament. What's the next big thing that you want to really get involved in?
Well, the big thing I'm involved with at the moment is the HS2 issue, trying to mitigate.
Can we still turn that? Can we still stop that?
Well, I don't think it'll go ahead in its original form. My crusade, which I will never win, is to actually go back to the original plan for HS2. And you know what that would have been? That would have been that HS2 would have gone into the mainline stations like Birmingham New Street. Instead, it's in a standalone station. That it would link in with HS1, because although I'm a Eurosceptic, I'm a Europhile, i.e. I like Europe. I like the European countries.
Of course. Well, I mean, all Eurosceptics do, in my experience.
It's just the European Union.
Yeah.
And, of course, they're terrified, by the way. I mean, the whole fishing thing, if we can just go back to that for a moment, is Macron is terrified. On April the 10th next year, he's got a general election. He is doing lousily in the polls. And those posters, Frexit, which I see all over, well, at least when I was travelling to France before COVID, you see all over lampposts and everything, is a big, strong movement. That's why the Prime Minister of France said, can't have Britain being successful. Next big thing, it'll be whatever, comes along at the time.
Yeah,
but
well,
I would love to see, though, the original plan for HS2. You get on at Birmingham New Street or Manchester Piccadilly, wake up in
Well, you've
Paris.
got a big battle on this.
Now you've got to keep changing
You've got a big battle on this, and I'm with you completely on it. I think it's ridiculous to spend this amount of money, given where we are at this moment in time. One last quick thought. You were there for the budget last week. Was that a Conservative budget?
It was a pragmatic budget. There are times, when you've got to be a little bit diplomatic. It was a pragmatic budget in difficult circumstances.
Now, you can tell, folks, from a language, Michael Fabricant is not leaving politics anytime soon, but we thank him for coming in with us on Talking Pints.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.